The funny thing is, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe even, everyone was like, AI is coming for production, right? Like creative production and what our experience so far has not been the case. Like icon.me launched a service offering right on top of their creative production engine. And so outside of creative production, you can go sort of down the line in terms of media production. Like there's creating ads and building out campaigns on Meta and building out campaigns on Google somehow like isn't actually the thing being affected. It's more like I can be my own lawyer now, or whatever the thing, like high education, sort of skill set that was necessary prior. So it's coming for the strategy more than the production, for sure. In terms of the efficiencies that we're seeing and that we're able to engage in.
This episode of the DTC Hotline is brought to you by ChargeFlow. Chargebacks cost merchants billions every year in lost product, lost revenue, and lost time. ChargeFlow automates the entire process, end to end. Instead of wasting hours collecting screenshots and filling out bank portals, ChargeFlow uses AI to fight disputes for you and wins up to 4x more than manual efforts. Join over 15,000 merchants protecting their revenue with ChargeFlow. Right now, you can try it free for 60 days. Check out the link in the show notes to start saving money, time, and sanity today. Welcome, folks, to the D2C Hotline. This is your direct connection to hot takes, cold truths, nothing but real e-com advice from some of the best in the biz. I'm your host, Richard the Professor Gaffin. Call or text 866-DTC-2263 to get your burning e-com questions answered. That's 866-382-2263. Leave a voicemail, shoot us a text, ask whatever's on your mind. Our operators are standing by. And speaking of which, let me introduce them to you right now. Coming in live now from CTC Studios in Costa Mesa, California, we got Mr. Luke, the Weatherman. Austin. Luke, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. We've got some good, hot questions today that are going to spark many a good discussion. So we're looking forward to it, as always.
Excited for your piping hot takes. All right. And then, of course, coming from his beautiful home in Newport Beach, California, we have Mr. Tony Chopp, the Chopper, coming in live. Tony, what's going on, man?
Flying high, Richard. Ready to elevate.
Excellent. All right, cool. So basically, just a couple words about the format here. We get questions from listeners. We get questions from our members in Admission, which is our subscription training platform. And then we let Tony and Luke go nuts on them. So without further ado, let's jump right into our first voicemail here.
Hi, DTC Hotline. This is Caitlin. So I've been a part of a handful of conversations about price changes ahead of or in response to the tariffs. So I'm wondering, how are you seeing this play out just in the wider e-commerce landscape, or from the business perspective, as well as consumer sentiment and overall consumer purchasing power? Thanks.
It is a great question. So Taylor did a poll 5 days ago. A little under 300 people voted on X. Have you raised your prices due to tariffs? 49.1% said yes. 50.9% said no. So half of all brands are raising prices to some extent due to tariff, and that additional cost is going to be passed down to the consumer ultimately. In terms of the price changes and the impact, there is not a consensus in terms of there's not a strict sort of correlation or relationship in terms of price increase X percentage or X amount is going to lead to this specific impact in terms of your conversion rate outcome. And we can just sort of model it out, and let's find the optimal point on the graph. Because similar to spend AMER models, the degradation curve or the impact curve of price increase and what your specific consumer base is going to respond, how they're going to respond to a level of price increase, is going to be specific to your brand. You have a specific degradation curve for your spend AMER model. You have a specific curve as it relates to price sensitivity for your consumer. And the short answer is, until you do in thoughtful price testing against what that curve looks like and what the impact is, there's no formula or guidelines around what that should look like for you. So in the context of price changes, it's going to be necessary for many brands getting passed on an additional cost really directly to them. That's going to have to show up somewhere, either in the form of more efficient acquisition cost and or in the form of price increase, and likely some combination of the two. And so the long and short of it is you have a specific degradation curve for your brand related to acquisition efficiency, the spend AMR model. You have a specific curve related to price sensitivity and how those changes are going to impact your consumer. And now you have another dimension added onto your spend AMR model, basically, in terms of finding what that optimal point is and doing thoughtful testing like we do for media channels, like we do with incrementality testing, thoughtful testing on price changes and price impact to find what the optimal point is based on the needs for margin creation for your business.
Tony?
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like always true, right? Like prices are always increasing. I think a couple things really stand out about this. We did some analysis of our portfolio back in April around their supply chains when the tariff stuff was originally popping up. And I was actually a bit surprised by how diverse it was. I had expected there to be a really heavy concentration in some of the countries that had really high tariffs, and I was, I think, pleasantly surprised at the robustness and diversification of the supply chain of a lot of the clients that we work with. And I think this is, I don't want to make this a non-answer, but I think it's really important for any operator to think about the diversification of their supply chain and concentration of that in any one place as a risk. There's proportional risk associated with the concentration, just like there's proportional risk if you have a really high concentration of your media investment or your growth engine all into one channel. It can work, but it represents risk. So I think that's one of the lessons to be learned from this.
Hold on a sec. I'm getting an echo from... What happened with you, Luke? Hold on. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
One of the lessons to be learned from this year is keep thinking about how to diversify your supply chain for the products that you sell, which is generally good practice, which is good practice in general, just to be considering the variable costs that go into your cost of delivery. So that's point number one. Point number two, I think a lot about when you have the conversation around price. I think it's really important to not get overly fixated on price and to make sure that you're really paying attention to the question of value, because those two things are not always the same. I read something that Nick Shackelford posted on LinkedIn recently about his company Breeze, and he was talking about something about I forget the term he used, but I want to say like the negative space economy or something to this effect. And effectively what he was saying is there's all of these various products that are creating value by removing ingredients. So for example, caffeine-free beverages as a category are perceived as higher value and thereby higher price. Now that's a double win, because number one, you have a higher value, so you can charge a higher price. But number two, the point that Nick was making is it actually reduces the cost of the product as well by removing ingredients. So I think that's an interesting way to explore the value proposition is, or let's say it a different way. If you're only thinking about price, it's a very dangerous, risky race to the bottom. And you need to make sure that you're thinking about considering your value proposition so that you can support the inevitable pathway of rising costs of everything always, all the time. We're just in a little bit of an acute moment here, but it's not really that much different than the normal trajectory of things.
Mm-hmm. So the idea then, just to kind of summarize that last piece, is because there's an inevitability to prices going up, there has to be a sort of a, what's the word I'm looking for, coinciding increase in the value of what you're selling, or the way that you're sort of at least messaging what you're selling, so that it kind of holds up to the amount that price is going to have to increase, right? So if somebody's paying, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 bucks more for whatever, they have to have some understanding that that's a great value and that it's well worth the price going up, that type of thing.
Well, yeah, this has always been true. You know how much you can sell something for?
As much as people will pay for it.
As much as somebody's willing to pay for it. Exactly. And that's all about that's all about value. And Luke and I have these conversations like almost continuously around the pricing and the concepts on how we deliver CTC services to our clients. So we're dealing with our rising costs that happen all the time. It's all about value.
Yeah, totally. Let's dive in a little bit. Like, what does that conversation between the two of you look like? You don't necessarily have to go into some specifics about our product, but like, where are you looking to increase value? Like, how are you going about that?
So I would say there's in this conversation, all those things being true that Tony talked through, what we also all understand is where we want to live is at the intersection. We want the service that can deliver all the things at the same time. The best product and service in the market at the best price with the best folks being able to deliver that thing, right? So like once you start operating in one dimension separate from the other, hey, we have team members with more experience and we have really cool tools, but we're also the most expensive. Or we're pretty fairly priced and have some of the best people with best experience, and our tools are less than helpful. Once you start doing that, then you really have to index in like a couple of those dimensions to make up for not being able to have a value prop that exists in whatever that second or third dimension is. So the conversations for us orient around how can we deliver all of those three things at once? How can we just be the clear choice if you're evaluating against those three criteria? And what I would say is over the course of the recent months, we've been more and more interested in helping deliver our service at the best price possible in the market and finding ways to make that possible for our customers through developing an incrementality and measurement offering that we're including as part of our core service when customers work with us in our core capacity. And we kind of go down the line from there, but primarily thinking first about how do we operate as being the best value against those things in the space, and then work up from there. Because the value equation is cost against the return, right? So the denominator, we want to keep that as low as possible always, and find ways to improve that, because it's going to be helpful in anyone assessing that value creation. And then what I'd say is on the top side of that formula, in terms of the net new revenue or margin creation, is we are focused on our system operating against forecasting and executing against contribution margin targets on a daily basis. And we are interested in being as closely tied to the financial outcome of the brands that we work with, so that we can clearly show if the financial impact was there or not in a way that we believe is unique in the market. Now, what I'd say to that point is in this exercise, we've also seen ways in which we're aware of ways in which our system has cracks in it related to the integrity of the data, and that aligning with the finance team on the customer side, and us actually all being able to agree upon the contribution margin as the definition and what we're tracking against, and also cracks as it relates to the forecasted outcome versus the goal or the desired outcome for the brand, and bridging those things. So there are gaps that we're looking to address to make the value side of the equation as impactful as it can be, while also thinking about the cost. But short answer is going after all the categories as aggressively as we can, because once you start losing in one of those categories, then you really have to overcompensate elsewhere to make up the gap.
If you're still fighting chargebacks manually, you're doing it wrong. With ChargeFlow, merchants automate the entire dispute process. From Shopify to Stripe, ChargeFlow plugs in, collects evidence, builds the case, and submits it automatically. No more late nights at bank portals, no more disputes slipping through, just clean automation and real results, with merchants recovering 4x more revenue compared to manual handling. See for yourself. Try ChargeFlow free for 60 days at the link in the show notes. All right, let's jump into our next one here.
Hey team, appreciate the tips so far on DTC Hotline. Hoping you're able to help me out with a question around creative performance. Looking just to see if you had any tips around measurement on a more granular level, like how much time are you spending with the clients you work with, looking at things like click-through rate or total watch time? Also, are there any like sneaky metrics that you've slipped into your custom columns that have been really helpful when you're looking a little bit closer at creative performance? Appreciate the help. Thanks.
It's sneaky because you can't actually get to it, but the creative fatigue metric is is I think really, really interesting. And I'm not totally sure why Meta hasn't surfaced it more broadly, but we've been able to access it through our various account reps and various accounts. That's like the first thing that jumps out to me is the sort of measurable relationship that Meta has to how tired an ad is. And I think it probably represents probably the biggest area of impact.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like I think it's really easy to get into this idea of like any one metric being a proxy for like an outcome, and I think it can be kind of sketchy. So I'm a little bit cautious to say like, watch CTRs or CVRs or CPMs or watch time or really any of those things, because in the various analyses that we've done, we see very, very little to no correlation between any individual input metric, CTR, CVR, watch time with the actual output. I think the biggest thing is whether or not Meta is determining a particular creative unit as fatigued or not.
Interesting. Luke?
Yeah, in addition, the thing I'm most interested in is where is the spend volume getting aggregated against in the account? And the Pareto principle, meaning that the majority, 80% of the spend and the volume being driven by the account is going to come from 20% of the creatives. It's actually it's typically a lot more exaggerated than that, even, where it's like out of the 300 ads you have running in your account, 5 of them are contributing 80% of the spend. And so finding a winning ad is really hard because there's no formula to it. When you go into account and you see these are the 5 ads that are contributing 80% of the spend, like the simplest way to put it is I'm going to go and try to find ad number 6 and ad number 7. How am I going to do that? Well, first I'm going to make 50 to 100 iterations of all 5 of those ads that are in there, different color backgrounds and it's a guy batting underwater, and I'm going to make him batting in a sort of dark, deep blue ocean water versus like coastal, I'm in Cancun water, and like just all the variations, like sharks swimming by him while he's batting underwater versus there's a manta ray there, right? Like just 100 iterations of the top 5 ads in the account. And then I'm also going to make 100 ads that are just completely net new based on things that are based on my customer review analysis, based on competitors in this space and getting inspired by them, but just net new things. And once I do that and create 100 iterations of my top 5 ads, and I create 500 new ads that are just completely new concepts based on those things, I may have a chance to create ad 6 or 7, maybe even 8. Probably not ad 20, right? Like, but that's what it's going to take. So the aggregation of where the spend volume is going is the strongest indication of what's actually going to deliver meaningful scale for the brand in the long term. And it should we iterate? Should we create net new concepts? What's the difference if I change the background from blue to red? Is that a net new concept? Is it an iteration? Like it doesn't matter. Like create 100 iterations and create 100 new concepts. Like you're trying to find ad 6 or 7 that's going to be the thing that for the next 2 years accumulates millions of dollars of spend for your ad account. Like that's the task that we've seen as necessary to be able to actually meaningfully impact the ad account performance based on quote unquote creative insights.
Yeah. So, I mean, like the long story short, then there's no particular like leading metric to indicate creative performance other than did it perform at the end of the day, right? Like, is it driving conversions? Is spend being aggregated towards it? But I mean, I know we used to put a lot more stock into the idea of like whatever click-through rate, watch time being indicators that maybe there's some magic under the surface that isn't quite working. But really what it sounds like is that just like the elements that make a good ad are sort of who knows what they are really. Like you were saying, there's no formula for it, so you just have to be taking shots as many times as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think the metrics can be helpful for troubleshooting when there's meaningful drop-offs in performance or what the business is seeing. The metrics, in our experience, are not as helpful in determining what the next best thing is that you are going to be able to unlock for the brand and generate a net new idea. So said another way, you look at the historical ads, you see the click-through rate on this ad is just as good as all the other click-through rates in your account, but the conversion rate is super low. Why is the conversion rate super low? And then you go through and, oh, it's because the shoe that was shown in that ad is sold out of half the sizes, whereas all the other ads that have the click-through rate aren't. Okay, this is helpful. Like we've been able to get down to like a performance-related issue based on that. But the click-through rate being lower on average, like why is it? There, I think we all have ideas. Let's create ads based on all of those ideas plus more, because in creating those new ads, it's just going to create more questions, and what the combinations are of the creative elements that lead to the outcome. Create a high volume of creative output is going to be the thing that's going to unlock more of what that looks like.
Yeah, I wanted to double back to what you were saying, Tony, around the fatigue metric. So obviously this is not something that people have access to widely, but can you give us a little more insight into like what does that metric look like, and what, I know Meta's a black box most of the time, but what insight, if any, you have into what the metric itself is indicating?
Yeah. So I think I was thinking about this as Luke was talking, like the creative fatigue metric it's a ratio measure on how Meta is determining the ad as being fatigued. It definitely has a relationship to frequency. They won't tell us exactly what goes into it, but I got to thinking about it when Luke was talking. It's like all it tells you to do is go make more ads. It might tell you a little bit sooner than actually losing the performance from a historically high spending ad, but the road that it leads to is no different than what Luke was describing. But it's worth looking at, and I think this is the number one thing that I think is interesting about looking at it across accounts. It gives you an average time to fatigue based on the whole portfolio of ads, which we've seen some pretty wide variances in, anything from a week or so to several weeks. And I think maybe there's something to be gathered from that, as like, why do some accounts seem to have a longer runway with the creative they put in the account as opposed to a shorter runway?
Let's jump to another one. This is a text message question that we got, which is, hey guys, how are you recommending clients respond to the new Texas SMS law? Should we just exclude Texas from our SMS sends, or is there a better way to approach?
So there's an opportunity cost in any one of these decisions, and the trade-off of the risk versus the reward is something that each brand is going to have to figure out for themselves in terms of what that looks like. So this advice and this perspective is not a specific recommendation or advice to be taken in any way, but a framework for thinking about it, which is it's a risk reward decision. It's non-binary. There is risk reward on either side. It needs to be weighed. For a good number of brands, there's likely a small amount of meaningful revenue volume that you're driving from SMS in Texas, and the work that's going to go into uncovering what the risk of continuing to send in Texas is, what the changes to your program need to be able to accomplish that, the additional cost of each SMS send to that market may indicate to you if the volume's low enough that like maybe you just stop. Maybe it might not be worth the resource and the energy and the potential risk or trade-off based on the volume you actually get there. And we don't do that, and we focus on other states and find ways to increase overall contribution through some net new flows across email and SMS, or make up the ground in paid media, or whatever it might be. For other brands, there might be more meaningful volume there where it's definitely something to get after, in which case there's also a question about what is the risk for yourself as a brand continuing to engage there against when there might be enforcement against that law, and if you're the person that will actually get raised in some of those issues or not. Again, there's risk and reward on either side of those things, and something that needs to be taken into consideration. But it's before setting out on, before accepting, this is something we need to do, and we need to invest the resource and the time and really change this, and it's going to be a big overhaul project. I think the first step for anyone is do the risk reward, understand how much volume and actual marginal dollars you're creating from that specific subset of that channel and that geolocation, and understand if it's something that's worth just not engaging in and redirecting and focusing attention elsewhere. Do the risk reward trade-off on the front end to help to decide what course of action you take before you just start engaging in and accepting, oh, well, this must be the path because this is what everyone is saying, or this is what I've heard that everyone's doing, or whatever it might be. Do the math for your brand specifically on the front end, and then you'll have to make a decision based on the opportunity cost between the two decisions.
Tony?
Yeah, I read a little bit about it. I definitely don't fully and deeply understand it, but I think what a part of it is about Texas is requiring businesses to register with their Secretary of State so that the business is actually real. So as somebody who gets like 10 million spam calls a day, like honestly, I'm here for it. So I think the policy is actually not quite as potentially as punitive. I think it's more a matter of like establishing that you're a legitimate business and probably some governmental fees to deal with. And I think there's also a carve out on it that it doesn't apply to messaging existing customers. So anybody that you actually have a customer relationship with. So yeah, I don't know. I don't feel, I'm not super email SMS expert guy, but I think generally speaking, I'm happy to receive messages from companies that I do business with, and very unhappy to receive unsolicited texts or phone calls from people that I don't. So, hot take. I'm here for it. Sorry, Jessica.
There you go. Love it. All right, cool. So let's jump into one final voicemail here. This is, I think, going to give you the most opportunity for a hot take here, but we'll see. So I'm going to play it off right now.
Hey, guys. Love the hotline. From what you're seeing across the best e-commerce brands, how is AI actually showing up in their workflows now? Is it only the research or creative strategy process, or are you seeing it anywhere else that's interesting? And also, what's your hottest take on where this is all headed for e-commerce businesses in general? Thanks.
Yeah, so this is the funny thing is, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe even, everyone was like, AI is coming for production, right? Like creative production and what our experience so far has not been the case. Like Icon.me launched a service offering right on top of their creative production engine. And so outside of creative production, you can go sort of down the line in terms of media production. Like there's creating ads and building out campaigns on Meta and building out campaigns on Google somehow like isn't actually the thing being affected. It's more like I can be my own lawyer now, or whatever the thing, like high level, high education, sort of skill set that was necessary prior. So it's coming for the strategy more than the production, for sure. In terms of the efficiencies that we're seeing and that we're able to engage in. Now, I think that's going to continue to change, like the space changes really quickly. Google's Nano Banana that was launched recently is doing some wild stuff as it relates to creative production and what it's able to do. So like there's going to continue to be new tools, but where we see it coming up is more creating efficiencies in sort of high level thought work and strategy and supercharging those sorts of human beings where the like production layer is not being affected in the same rate at this point. And I think it's worth noting that Meta has simplified their ad buying platform, right? Like simplified into ASCs and things like that. So that's like maybe one way they've consolidated the like media buying labor intensive workflow. But outside of that, like you still have campaigns. Like Meta's portal isn't like an AI agent that you drop in, you're like, build me a campaign and it does it. Where the AI is like in the targeting and the backend and the algorithm, right? Like the strategy of where the media gets deployed, not we're going to deploy AI against the labor intensive sort of building out the campaign, which they very much could have done, created a building portal that's like an AI agent. And you just like, hey, I want you to build this and get into it. And they build your campaign and ad set and your ads and they tweak all the settings. And it's like your AI media buyer agent versus the investment has been made into the algorithm, like into the media buying itself and in terms of where the media gets deployed, which I think is like a parallel to what we're seeing as well, which is like that's where the value is actually created most, and going after that sort of production labor layer in the process as it relates to the design of ads or related to the building out of campaigns is not where it's being focused on right now, or the value is being captured, which I think is interesting.
Interesting. Tony?
Well, AI hasn't taken my job yet. So yeah, I mean, I sort of echo Luke's sentiment. Like a year or so ago, 6 months or so ago, like I think the idea of like AI sort of does the thing end to end was like maybe we all jumped the gun just a little bit.
Yeah.
Where do I think it's going? So, well, here's what I believe. I think the AI is an enabler. It's an enablement function that makes processing of information better, more robust. But there's a very big caveat to what is the information you're using. So, and I'll give you, for example, we work with different clients, and every client we work with, like everybody has a source of truth. Mm-hmm. So we have Statless, we use Statless, and we work really hard to get that to be accurate and representative. And we're actually going through an exercise right now to hold ourselves to a really high standard that Statless is accurate and representative from a financial perspective for our partners that we work with. But it's really, really hard. So everyone has this different source of truth. Is it Triple Whale? Is it Northbeam? Is it Shopify? Is it Google Analytics? Is it Statless? So the point being is that the starting point of the information matters. So what I believe is context is really, really important to the subsequent analysis and the integrity of the data. And what we're doing is at CTC, we're trying to fold the AI layer into a super clean, super sharp data set that we own, that we have in partnership with our clients, so that everything that it does that it outputs, whether it's analysis or, hey, you should build this campaign or tweak that campaign or create this much creative or do this, don't do that, do the other thing, from like a recommendation or a directional standpoint, is all built on top of inputs that are really, really rock solid and represent a source of truth that a bunch of human beings all agree is the source of truth.
Yeah. So in other words, that the LLM is only as good as what it's being trained on, or whatever the AI model is, right?
Yeah, sort of. In the training data set for GPT and a bunch of others has been like all the Reddit comments from all of human history. So
yeah, right.
Take it with a grain of salt, I guess.
Exactly. Okay, so let me get then. Well, first I want to know from both of you, like, how does AI show up in your personal workflows? Like, how are you actually using it, whether it's GPT or Claude or whatever the case may be? What is your actual personal use case for it? Let's go, Luke.
I talk to it about everything. My best friend, and my assistant.
Yeah.
It's like the simplest way about putting it. But like and in some cases, well, like my like memory in some ways too, like helps me to close the loop on things and then keep those conversations open. Like where in my mind, I'll have like open conversations or open loops, things that I'll be like thinking about. And what I can do is help to close those loops with the assistant of the AI, make a decision at that point in time, but then revisit that decision in a week, and the same conclusion and thing that we had analyzed from a week prior is still there. And then we can build off that based on the new information, which I think is similar to what Tony's saying, which is like the information there is, but the history is there. And then we can iterate and expand upon that in a way that things don't get lost. I think for outside of personal, like for CTC, we operationalizing insights from across our data set of clients has to be a value prop of what we bring to the table. And so that's something we're thinking through of how we can more effectively do that through AI by helping to capture the information and the context along the way across our data set, and then being able to iterate and build upon that in a way that there's less things falling through the cracks or hanging in silos of a 2-person Zoom meeting or a 3-person Slack DM message.
Yeah. Tony?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that I haven't tried to use it for.
Mm-hmm.
Personal use cases, going to Palm Springs play some golf this weekend. I was like, hey, GPT, from my previous conversations, I like this kind of mixture of value and coolness, like not the most expensive courses, not the cheap and dirty ones. Like I'm going to play 2 days out there. Give me 2 courses. I don't want to make any of the decisions at all. You know what I like, the sort of things that help me in my decision-making process. Like just give me the choice. A friend of mine from college moved up to Hermosa Beach, and I'm getting him going surfing. So I was GPT, what are the surf breaks midpoint between here and Hermosa Beach? Set it up for me. Give me the whole setup. So, and I think this sort of mirrors like one of the things that I was at a Google performance marketing conference earlier this year, and one of the folks that was speaking was talking about how we learned to Google. We learned how to use keywords and search and sort of speak in that language, and how we actually inquire about things is really messy. So I think one of the things that I love about GPT is I can give it my human messiness and have it help me organize and orient and prioritize and et cetera, et cetera. So, and ultimately arrive at a decision. On the work side, a couple of things, like practically I've gotten in the habit of setting up folders for various projects that I'm working on or clients that I'm working on. So it kind of gives me a space to, again, feed it the context. I use it a lot for data analysis. If I'm trying to seek out some pattern or something else, something that would have taken me, a bunch of time in a spreadsheet. I guess maybe say it said this way: I spend less time mucking around with spreadsheet formulas than I did 2 years ago. A lot of that work is happening in GPT. And then to the other point that Luke made, I think this is a project that I'm working on right now, is trying to capture and synthesize contextual information that happens in Zoom meetings and Slacks and like in all these various places, and dropping it into GPT and have it help me synthesize the overall what's happening here, what are the takeaways, what are the big ideas that are recurrent to fulfill this, the promise, to continue to fulfill the promise that Taylor's made forever, which is an agency. One of the value propositions of an agency is it's not just Tony that you're hiring or Luke. You're hiring the experience of all of us together doing this across 60 or 80 clients or whatever over 10 years. So I think the AI's ability to like take a bunch of information and synthesize it and organize it and orient it, a bunch of messy human information, synthesize it, squish it, orient it, structure it, I think it's going to be something that becomes more and more prevalent throughout our organization and many others.
Awesome. All right. Well, Luke had to jump, so we're going to wrap it up here. And just a couple words. If you want your questions answered on the pod, just remember, you can call us and leave us a voicemail, 866-DTC-2263, or you can send us a text there as well. We might read your question on a subsequent episode. So for Tony the Chopper Chop, for Luke the Weatherman Austin, I'm Richard the Professor Gaffin, signing off. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.